today we have the story of a storyteller. Yes, the third chapter of Moments, Iswaran The Story Teller by R.K. Lakshman. R.K. Lakshman, isn't that name very familiar? Well, it will be familiar to those who are familiar with the newspaper. Yes, the famous cartoonist, if you remember. Even otherwise, we have seen on WhatsApp, he has a lot of cartoon features. He makes a lot of them. So I'm sure you must have come across them. Very interesting and very expressive. So let's know a little about him. Rashipuram Krishnaswamy Iyer Lakshman, went right, was an Indian cartoonist, illustrator and humorist. He used to illustrate the writings. He used to, make it visual, right, in the form of cartoons. The famous writer R.K. Narayan was his elder brother, and Lakshman used to illustrate his stories. So he would write, the elder brother would write, and the younger brother, he would illustrate them. He would put the stories in the form of cartoons. He was best known for his creation, The Common Man, and for his daily cartoon strip. You Said It in the Times of India, which started in 1951. Yes, the cartoon strip that we see on the Times of India, that's by him. He was honored with the Raman Magsaysay Award in 1984 in the category Journalism, Literature and the Creative Communication Arts. So yes, he was definitely awarded for all the creativity that he had shown and deserved, of course. Coming to the plot of the story. Now, it's a really interesting story and I'm telling you, you're going to enjoy it throughout. So yes, stay glued. The title of this story, Iswaran the Story Teller, tells us that this story is about Iswaran. He is called the storyteller because as storytelling is an art, he is good at it. He is amazing at it. And you shall witness it when we go through the entire chapter. You shall actually be shocked. But yes, you shall love it as well. Iswaran uses special effects, does voice modulation, uses his body language to make the story realistic so that the listener, that is Mahendra, gets attracted and captivated in his story. Now, you will soon know who is Mahendra, which character is Mahendra. We have one Iswaran, the other we have Mahendra. The writer wants to highlight this quality of Iswaran, that he was so good at telling stories that they appeared to be real. They were like, when he was saying it, you could feel that it has actually happened or it is actually happening. His stories were a source of entertainment for Mahendra. Mahendra would enjoy. This was like an entertainment. This was like a live TV or a live movie for him. This is how he used to enjoy the stories. And you are going to enjoy them too. Yeah, I shall put in the voice modulation for you to make the stories as interesting as Iswaran made it. Yes, so the story was narrated to Ganesh by a young man, Mahendra by name. He was a junior supervisor in a firm which offered on hire supervisors at various types of construction sites, factories, bridges, dams, and so on. So yeah, he was working as a supervisor in a firm which would, offer on hire supervisors. They would offer supervisors on hire for different places like, the different sites, that's for factories, at bridges, where they are building dams, where they were constructing, all these things, these people used to offer them supervisors. So, Mahendra's job was to keep an eye on the activities at the work site. Now, this is what his job profile was. When he was there at the site, he would have to keep an eye on all the activities that were happening at that construction site. He had to keep moving from place to place every now and then as ordered by his head office. Now, his job was a transferable one. Why? Because once that site, that thing was over, the construction was over, he would have to move to another site where the construction was going to come up. He was the supervisor. So where all did he move from? From a coal mining area to a railway bridge construction site, from thereafter a few months to a chemical plant which was coming up somewhere. So this is how he moved from one place to another, all the different construction sites. He would keep moving as soon as the construction was over. So this is how, these construction sites are. Now, he was a bachelor, he was unmarried. His needs were simple and he was able to adjust himself to all kinds of odd conditions. Now look, you are being transferred, you know that. But at the same time, you know that is a temporary place. You have to put up in a temporary place because once this construction is over, again you have to keep moving on. Yeah. So he was very flexible. He oh, I don't like this. Oh, I want this. No. He was okay, however, wherever he was. Yeah. So he used to adjust himself to all kinds of odd conditions, whether it was an ill-equipped circuit house as in a rest house. Even if that rest house did not have all the luxuries, he was okay with it. Or a makeshift canvas tent in the middle of a stone quarry. Stone quarry as in a large deep pit from which stone or other materials are extracted. So even if it was like this, even if he had to, stay in a makeshift canvas tent, he was okay with it. He had no problems because he knew that's his job and good for him. If he was flexible, he was happy. Otherwise, he would have kept cribbing. Yeah. But one asset he had was his cook, Iswaran. Now here comes Iswaran. So we spoke of the two characters, Mahendra, this guy, the supervisor. Now with him was his cook, Iswaran. Remember, he's calling him an asset. An asset is something with which you benefit. Yeah. So how was it? The cook was quite attached to Mahendra and followed him uncomplainingly wherever he was posted. Uncomplainingly. So just like Mahendra was one of them, so was Iswaran. The birds of a feather flock together, we say that. Yeah. So both of them were good company to each other. Both were flexible. Both never had any issues. Likewise, even Iswaran was the same. He went with him whichever construction site Mahendra was sent, Iswaran would follow him uncomplainingly. He cooked for Mahendra, washed his clothes and chatted away with his master at night. Now this is how he would take care of him and even give him company. He could weave out endless stories and anecdotes on varied subjects. Now, Iswaran the Storyteller, that's the name of our chapter. Yes. So, he could weave out endless stories. He could go on and on and on. He had, stories by dozens. And anecdotes. Anecdotes are short, amusing stories on varied subjects, on different subjects. He had amazing anecdotes and you're going to witness some here. Iswaran also had an amazing capacity to produce vegetables and cooking ingredients seemingly out of nowhere. Now, he had this super quality, he had this amazing capacity, to do what? To produce vegetables and cooking ingredients. I mean, whichever place they went to, whether it was isolated, whether it was somewhere, in the exteriors, he had no issues. He would somehow manage getting his ingredients and the vegetables out of nowhere. In the middle of a desolate landscape, desolate here as in uninhabited, there were hardly people living there and giving an impression of emptiness. So all around there was nobody, there was nothing. But still, somehow, somewhere he would go get the vegetables, get the ingredients and cook for his master. And amazing dishes, not the kaam chalao dishes, really yummy, tasty dishes. He would, in the middle of a desolate landscape with no shops visible for miles around. There were no shops around for miles together, but this man did his magic. He would miraculously conjure up the most delicious dishes. Conjure up as in he would make appear unexpectedly out of nowhere. He would conjure up the most delicious dishes made with fresh vegetables within an hour of arriving at the zinc sheet shelter at the new workplace. Now, wherever they went, now, for example, he's come to this place where he has the zinc sheet shelter at the new workplace. It's just a zinc sheet on top. That's it. It's his new workplace. Now, they have arrived and within an hour, he managed to do it all. He was such a superman. Mahendra would be up early in the morning and leave for work after breakfast, carrying some prepared food with him. Now, he would leave early in the morning. Now, imagine what time would Iswaran get up? He would cook for his breakfast. He would cook his lunch. Obviously, he ate his breakfast and he would carry the food, because where would he manage the food? Unlike now, wherever you have the workplace, you're provided with lunch and you have so many facilities. You have a cafe, you have so many things, but nothing of that sort here. So, he would have to arrange his own meals. So, meanwhile, now while he would go, Iswaran would tidy up the shed, wash the clothes and have a leisurely bath. Leisurely bath as in acting or done at leisure, unhurried or relaxed. He would take a nice good bath, pouring several buckets of water over his head, muttering a prayer all the while. People do have this habit, while they're taking a bath, they chant, they do chanting or they say some prayer. It would be lunchtime by then. Now, all this would be done and then it would be lunchtime. After eating, he would read for a while before dozing off. Now, he was a voracious reader. He loved to read. So, whenever he got this time, so after eating, he would eat his meals, then he would read for a while before dozing off. Now, obviously, he has got up so early, to cook for Mahendra. So, he took some good rest. The book was usually some popular Tamil thriller running to hundreds of pages. Now, he was a Tamilian, so he would read a Tamil thriller. Its imaginative descriptions and narrative flourishes would hold Iswaran in thrall. Now, the way the things would be described in this story, in that book, it would make him in a state of being in or under someone's power. At times you read books where you just don't want to stop reading. You are so captivated. You are so absorbed that you just don't want to stop reading. Now, this was the case with Iswaran. The moment he would start reading, especially this Tamil thrill, he somehow would never be able to stop. He just would go on and on. His own descriptions were greatly influenced by the Tamil authors that he read. Now, he read all the Tamil authors. So, whenever he would read, the way they would describe, the way he would tell stories to Mahendra was somewhat similar. Because he was influenced, he would read those. So, obviously, he would, say the similar words. When he was narrating even the smallest of incidents, he would try to work in suspense and a surprise ending into the account. So, even if he had to tell you a small story, an anecdote, what would do? He would try to work it in suspense. He would create a lot of, anxious uncertainty. What's a suspense, right? He would make it suspense and then a surprise ending into the account. He would give it a surprise ending. So, it would be really interesting for anyone to listen. Now, for example, Instead of saying, now just watch this, just listen to this very carefully. Instead of saying that he had come across an uprooted tree, a tree, which had come out from the roots and fallen on the highway, he would say, you can see that uprooted tree there, yeah? He would say, with eyebrows suitably arched, his eyebrows nicely arched, and hands held out in a dramatic gesture. He would use, his body language was amazing. It would match with whatever he would speak. Now, this is how he would put it, Iswaran. The road was deserted and I was all alone. Suddenly, I spotted something that looked like an enormous bushy beast lying sprawled across the road. I was half inclined to turn and go back, but as I came closer, I saw that it was a fallen tree with its dry branches spread out. Mahendra would stretch himself back in his canvas chair and listen to Iswaran's tales uncritically. Now, do you see how did he put it? He just wanted to speak of a tree which had fallen along with its roots, right from the roots. It had got uprooted. How did he put it? So beautifully. I mean, of course, it's so interesting when you want to read this. That's the reason I never stopped in between. He says the road was deserted. There was nobody. I was all alone. So now he's trying to create that suspense. Then he says, suddenly I spotted something that looked like an enormous bushy beast. Bushy, why? Because it was a tree. So bushy beast. He calls the tree a beast because from far it looks something like that. Lying sprawled as in spread out over a large area. Now it was a tree, so obviously it would occupy a large area. I was half inclined as in willing to do something. I was not sure whether I should go or I should turn back because I'm scared that might be a beast. I can just be killed. But as I came closer, I went on going closer to that and I realized that was a fallen tree. So you see the suspense he created and gave it a surprise ending. This is how, Mahendra would be entertained. And he would relax back in his chair and just listen to him uncritically. He would never criticize. He would enjoy every word because he would give a lot of voice modulation, his body language, and he would create a lot of suspense. So yes, Mahendra enjoyed every second of it. The place I come from is famous for timber. Iswaran would begin. Now he says where I have come from, that means from where he has come, that place is famous for timber, the wood. There is a richly wooded forest all around. The logs are hauled onto the lorries by elephants. The elephants, they take the wood in their trunk and then they put it onto the lorries. They are large, well-fed beasts. When they turn wild, even the most experienced mahout is not able to control them. He says if an elephant runs wild, you have no idea. Even the person who works with or rides and tends an elephant, even a person like him, cannot control the elephant. It's highly uncontrollable. After this prologue, Iswaran would launch into an elaborate anecdote involving an elephant. Now, he actually spoke about this. He spoke about the introduction of the elephants. Now, after this introduction, prologue as in this introduction, he would launch into an elaborate anecdote. He would start with an amusing short story involving an elephant. And what was it? Really interesting. You must listen. One day, a tusker. Now, who's a tusker? Here, basically, it's an elephant, but generally, animal with well-developed tusks. So, here we are talking about an elephant. Escaped from the timber yard and began to roam about, stamping on bushes, tearing up wild creepers, and breaking branches at will. He had just gone wild. He had gone mad. And what he was doing was, he began to roam about, that elephant. He was stamping on bushes. When an elephant really walks and he's wild, you can imagine, you can just visualize it, imagine it. tearing up the wild creepers, and he was breaking branches. You know, sir, how an elephant behaves when it goes mad? He was telling, now he is narrating this anecdote to Mahendra. So he's asking him, you know, sir, how an elephant behaves when it goes mad? Iswaran would get up so caught in the excitement of his own story. Now he gets so involved in the story that he literally got up from his place, that he would get up from the floor and jump about, stamping his feet in emulation of the mad elephant. He would actually, it is the reproduction of the actions or performance of someone. He would actually get up and start behaving and acting like the mad elephant. He gets so involved, you know, वो character में घुस जाता है. This is exactly an example of that. He would get involved in the character and then he would start behaving one like them. The elephant reached the outskirts of our town. Now this anecdote is continuing. Okay, the elephant reached the outskirts of our town, breaking the fences down like matchsticks. The fences which were there, he literally, you know, those fences are those lines, right? So he literally put them down like matchsticks. Now, obviously, in front of that huge elephant and with the strength that he has, obviously for him, they are matchsticks. He would continue. It came into the main road and smashed all the stalls selling fruits, mud pots and clothes. That elephant came onto the road and he even destroyed all the shops out there, all the stalls out there. People ran helter-skelter in panic. Helter-skelter as in involving disorderly haste or confusion. People were just running to save their own lives. Some were running here, some were running there. So it was helter-skelter. The elephant now entered a school ground. Oh heavens! He entered a school ground where the children were playing, breaking through the brick wall. He broke the brick wall and he entered a school ground and the children were playing out there. Can you just imagine what happened next? As per his anecdote, all the boys ran into the classrooms and shut the doors tight. Children were scared, obviously, and he broke the wall and he came, right? So obviously nobody is going to sit there and watch, though they love watching elephants. But then he had run wild. So all the children ran into the classrooms and they shut the door. The beast grunted, he made a noise and he wandered about, pulling out the football goal post, tearing down the volleyball net, kicking and flattening the drum kept for water, and uprooting the shrubs. Now these 4 lines, okay, they are telling you what all he did in the school. Once he entered the playground, what all did he spoil, what all did he destroy. And so you need to remember this, right? So he went about, there was the football goal post. Now children play football out there, right? So he even brought that down. He tore down the volleyball net. He kicked and flattened the drum which was kept for water. He ruined everything and he even uprooted the shrubs which were there. Meanwhile, all the teachers had climbed up to the terrace of the school building. From there, they helplessly watched the depredations of the elephant. Now what happened was, while this was happening, the children ran into the classrooms and, shut the door. And what did the teachers do? They ran up to the terrace of the school building. And from there, they were helplessly, they couldn't do anything about it. They just were watching that elephant do whatever he wanted, because obviously they could do nothing about it. So they were helplessly watching him, attack and do whatever all those different acts of attacking, whatever he was destroying, they were just watching. There was not a soul below on the ground. Obviously, who would be there in front of such a wild elephant? Everyone had just, hid away from him. The streets were empty, as if the inhabitants of the entire town had suddenly disappeared. Inhabitants as in the person or the animal that lives or occupies a place. All the streets had become empty. Not a single soul was even on the road. Because this elephant had started, no, so everyone just moved away. Everyone had just run away into their houses. Nobody was there. The streets had become empty. Everyone had disappeared. Now comes the great Iswaran. I was studying in the junior class at that time. Wow. And was watching the whole drama from the rooftop, from the terrace. He's saying, I was in junior class and I was watching this whole drama. I don't know what came over me suddenly. I grabbed a cane from the hands of one of the teachers and ran down the stairs and into the open. He says, I don't know what happened to me suddenly while I was watching him from top. Something came into me, something happened to me, and I took a cane. You know, cane was a long stick. Now, in those days, the teachers were, they used to beat, on your knuckles or on your palms if you didn't do homework or if you misbehaved or you were not disciplined. So, they had the right to hit you, unlike now. Unlike now, as in it's just not the case right now. So, he grabbed the cane from one of the teachers, from the hands of one of the teachers, and he ran downstairs from the terrace. He came down the staircase and he went into the open, in the place where the elephant was. The elephant grunted. He made that noise and menacingly swung a branch of tree which it held in its trunk. He actually very threateningly, like big dhamki types, he just swung the tree as if he was, like giving me a warning sort of thing. It stamped its feet. It made that big noise, kicking up a lot of mud and dust. It's like he's getting ready for war. It looked frightening. Now, obviously, the elephant is like just about to charge towards you, but I moved slowly towards it. He's saying, oh, I was strong. Though I saw him, though I was a little scared, but yes, I started moving slowly towards it. Stick in the hand. Remember the cane. People were watching the scene, hypnotized from the nearby housetops. Hypnotized as in they captured the whole attention of someone. They were like, oh, what is he doing? Everyone was watching. God knows what will happen next. The elephant looked at me red-eyed. Red-eyed as in the condition of having bloodshot eyes due to anger. Aankhein laal ho jana. He was really angry and he was staring at me. Ready to rush towards me. It was like he would just rush towards me. It lifted its trunk and trumpeted loudly. It made a huge loud sound. At that moment, I moved forward and mustering all my force, gathering all my force, whacked its third toenail on the quick. What I did was, I had to quickly take action because I knew I was there for it. So what I did at that moment, the moment he trumpeted, I moved toward it, gathering all my force, all my strength, all my energy, and I hit its third toenail on the quick, very quickly. The beast looked stunned for a moment. He was like, he went blank, he didn't know what happened. Then it shivered from head to foot and collapsed. So the moment he hit him on the toenail, his third toenail, the elephant went blank. He didn't know what happened, and then suddenly it started shivering from head to foot. It was in pain and it just fell down. It collapsed. I hope you're imagining the scene. At this point, Iswaran would leave the story unfinished. Now, this guy was very strange. When it came to climax, you know what he did? He would just stop there. He wouldn't continue to tell what happened next, what was the climax. He would leave the story unfinished and get up mumbling. Now imagine Mahendra is so lost in the story, just like you must be right now. And suddenly he would just get up and says, I will be back after lighting the gas and warming up the dinner. Just imagine, suddenly there's someone tells you, oh, I need to switch on the gas and I need to warm up the dinner. Mahendra, who had been listening with rapt attention, he was characterized by a state of fascination. He was totally absorbed into the story and he would be left hanging. As in, you keep someone waiting, says, oh, just wait, I'll just, switch on the gas and I'll warm up the dinner. Now that fellow like, what? I want to know what happened next. When he returned, Iswaran would not pick up the thread of the story right away. Now when he came back, he would not immediately start from where he stopped. Mahendra would have to remind him that the conclusion was pending. Mahendra would actually tell him, okay, so you were telling me this anecdote, what happened next? Well, a veterinary doctor was summoned to revive the animal. Iswaran would shrug casually. He's saying, oh, you know what? So the vet was called, vet is an animal doctor. He was called to actually, get that animal, get that elephant back to conscious. And he would just shrug it casually, say, oh, this is what happened. I mean, people are waiting for you to finish and this is what you say and how you say. 2 days later, it was led away by its mahout into the jungle. He's saying after 2 days, the mahout came and the elephant was taken back to the jungle. Well, how did you manage to do it, Iswaran? How did you bring down the beast? Now, Mahendra is actually, wondering. So, he is curious. He wants to know. He says, but how did you do this? How did you bring him down? It has something to do with the Japanese art, I think, sir. Now, remember, he is a voracious reader. So, he did a lot of reading and he had a lot of ideas. So, he says this is something to do with Japanese art. Karate or jujitsu, it is called. I had read about it somewhere. It temporarily paralyzes the nervous system, you see. He's saying for some time, it actually paralyzes the nervous system. So the moment that, that cane hit on the toenail, so his whole nervous system had come to a stop. That's the reason the elephant had fallen. So you see the benefits of reading. The more you read, the more you know, the more rich you are. Now, he could tackle this situation just because he had read about this somewhere. So yes, reading benefits. It helps a lot. It adds on to your knowledge. You come to know so many things. So many people were not aware. This helped him. So guys, keep reading. It's very, very good. Not a day passed without Iswaran recounting some story packed with adventure, horror and suspense. So every day this was the best source of entertainment for Mahendra. There was not a day. Now in the night he would come back, when he was back from work, they would relax either before or after dinner. Remember, he used to sit and talk to his master because he had no one to talk to, Iswaran. So when Mahendra was back, he would sit and talk it out to him in the form of stories or anything. They would exchange talks, they would keep discussing. But they definitely had a story which was way interesting. Why? Because it would be packed with adventure, horror and suspense. They would love it. They would enjoy it at night. He would love telling, he would narrating the story. He would enjoy that and Mahendra would enjoy listening to it. Whether the story was credible or not, Mahendra enjoyed listening to it because of the inimitable way in which it was told. He says whether that story deserved credit or not, irrespective whether it was really worth it or not, irrespective, he enjoyed it. Mahendra enjoyed it. Why? Because it was told in the very interesting manner. In a very, absorbing manner. He could really, visualize the whole thing. So expressively it was narrated. Iswaran seemed to more than make up for the absence of a TV in Mahendra's living quarters. He seemed to he was like more than a TV. I mean, even a TV would not have entertained Mahendra so much as, Iswaran did it for him. One morning, when Mahendra was having breakfast, Iswaran asked, "Can I make something special for dinner tonight, sir?" He says, "Can I make something really special? After all, today is an auspicious day. It's, it's a very beautiful day. It's a very, valuable sort of thing day. It's a very good day. According to the tradition, we prepare various delicacies to feed the spirits of our ancestors today, sir." He says today is that day, it's a very auspicious day where we actually prepare a lot of different kinds of food of our ancestors. That night, Mahendra enjoyed the most delicious dinner and complimented Iswaran on his culinary skills. He says, "Amazing. The way you have cooked it, amazing, and it tastes really too good." He seemed very pleased, but unexpectedly launched into a most garish account involving the supernatural. Now, he seemed very pleased. He was happy. Mahendra had actually, complimented him. But unexpectedly, he launched into the most garish account, obtrusively bright and showy. Somewhere he was lost. And where? Involving the supernatural. Now, remember that was the day he was feeding the spirits of the ancestors. Yeah. Now, here he was somewhere connected. Now, he wanted a topic to speak on. Remember? So, he was lost in that account of supernatural. He wanted to talk about those spirits maybe. Sir, well, here you are. Sir, this entire factory area we are occupying was once a burial ground. It was a cemetery. He started. Mahendra was jerked out of the pleasant reverie he had drifted into after the satisfying meal. Now, he was lost. The meal that he had eaten, he was really enjoying that fullness, that satisfaction, and suddenly Iswaran gave him a jhatka. What was the jhatka? He says, this place, this whole factory area, where we have put up actually, once upon a time, it was a shamshan. And he was shocked. Mahendra lost it all. I knew on the first day itself when I saw a human skull lying on the path. Even now, I come across a number of skulls and bones, Iswaran continued. Now, to what extent is that true, or is he making up a story? No one knows. He says, I saw it on the path. I have even come across many, not just one. I have come across many skulls and bones, because this was a shamshan, they bury people there, they burn people there. So, definitely you come across such things. And this man who was actually lost in his own thoughts, after eating that amazing food, just got a jerk. He got a jhatka. He went on to narrate how he sometimes saw ghosts at night. Now, remember, he used to, narrate anecdotes on different subjects. So, first it was elephants. Today it is about ghosts. So, if you love them, keep listening. Even otherwise, keep watching. I am not easily frightened by these things, sir. I am not afraid. I am a brave fellow. But one horrible ghost of a woman which appears off and on at midnight during the full moon. It is an ugly creature with matted hair and a shriveled face, like a skeleton holding a fetus in its arms. You know what? While I'm reading this and if I'm visualizing, I'm getting jitters. I'm getting goosebumps. I don't know about you, but yes, I'm scared. So he says, everything is okay. I'm brave. I don't get scared of these things. But there is this one, the ghost of a woman. It's a horrible ghost. And when do you see it? It appears off and on at midnight during the full moon. When it's a full moon day, that ghost comes, it sort of comes. It's definitely an ugly creature. It doesn't even look good. It's got matted hair, as in tangled into a thick mass. You can see that. And a shriveled face, it is wrinkled and it is shrunken, especially as a result of old age. In the old age, how the people have their face, that type of a face she has, like a skeleton holding a fetus, like an unborn child. That mass, that piece of flesh, it's just like that in its arms. Mahendra shivered at the description and interrupted rather sharply. He was so scared. He actually shivered at the description. He was way too scared and he just stopped him immediately. He's never done that. He's never done that when Iswaran has spoken, but right now he was too scared and so he just spoke out. You are crazy, Iswaran. There are no such thing as ghosts or spirits. Such things don't even exist. It is all a figment of your imagination. Now, figment is what? It is a thing that someone believes to be real, but only in their imagination. He's saying it's all a part of your imagination and you're thinking it's real. It's not. It's all a figment of your imagination. Get your digestive system examined and maybe your head as well. You are talking nonsense. Now, Mahendra was so scared. He says, for God's sake, get your digestive system. Maybe it's the gas that's entering your head. Maybe that's why you're imagining things. Oh, please get your digestive system and your head checked as well. There is no such thing. It's utter nonsense. There's nothing of that sort. He left the room and he retired for the night, expecting Iswaran to sulk for a couple of days. The way he, spoke back to Iswaran, he felt that I have hurt him and I'm sure he's going to be silent. You are, you're bad-tempered out of annoyance or you're disappointed. Now, Mahendra generally doesn't do that to Iswaran. But this topic was such that Mahendra just spoke out. So he felt that I'm sure I have disappointed him. I have actually, I'm sure he's going to be quiet and he's not going to talk to me for the next few days. But the next morning, he was surprised to find the cook as cheerful and talkative as ever. Thank God, he was normal. He was not disappointed. From that day on, Mahendra, for all his brave talk, went to bed with a certain unease. Now, he had heard that line. He had heard that from Iswaran and somewhere this thing had registered in his mind. So, every time in the night, he would just come back and sleep peacefully after listening to Iswaran's story. But somehow, from that day onwards, he was a little uneasy. He was a little restless. He was not able to sleep that peacefully. Every night, he peered into the darkness outside through the window next to his bed, trying to make sure that there was no movement of dark shapes in the vicinity. What he would do, from that day onwards, now because he was restless, so what he would do, he would look through the window, wherever they were staying, he would look through the window, he would look around to make sure that there is no movement of dark shades. In the vicinities, the area, the surrounding area, he would make sure there is nothing like that of that sort, and after that he would do that and then finally go to bed. But he could only see a sea of darkness with the twinkling lights of the factory miles away. He could see nothing of that sort, the way he imagined the ghosts or the spirits. He could see nothing but the sea of darkness. There was absolutely darkness over there. It's not a sea, it's actually talking of darkness. There was darkness and the twinkling of the factories, the lights would just be visible miles away. He had always liked to admire the milk white landscape on full moon nights. Now, full moon nights, when you, I don't know if you have noticed, if you ever get out of your mobiles and out of your TVs and out of your Netflix, watch the sky outside, watch the scene outside when it is a full moon day. Don't expect any ghosts, it's just a story. But watch it from your balcony, the full moon day. You can see the moonlight actually falling on you. You can see it's all lighted up around you. Yeah, so this is what he would love, the milk white landscape. The landscape is the entire scenery. It would actually be lit up because of the full moon. But after hearing Iswaran's story of the female ghost, he avoided looking out of his window altogether when the moon was full. Especially on a full moon night, he would never peep out of his window because he had heard it from Iswaran that especially on the full moon night, that ghost of the woman would appear. So he literally stopped it. He just did not, peep out of the window. One night, Mahendra was woken up from his sleep by a low moan close to his window. He suddenly got up and, he felt that low moan, that sound coming. At first, he put it down to a cat prowling around for mice. Prowling as in moving, stealthily. Maybe the cat was moving around and maybe that's why that sound came. First, he thought it was that. But this sound was too guttural for a cat, as in it was produced in the throat. So it did not seem like a cat. It was not similar to a cat's sound. He resisted the curiosity to look out, lest he should behold a sight which would stop his heart. Now what he did was, he resisted the curiosity. He sort of felt like to see what it was, but then he said no. He stopped his curiosity there only, because God forbid if he did that, lest as in to avoid something. If he would do that, maybe he would behold a sight which would stop his heart. He says, right now it's my curious mind, but if I go out and see, and if I see something strange, that will stop my heart. So it's better I stop here only. But the wailing became louder, the crying in pain or anger. Now that sound became a little louder and less feline. He could not understand. Now there is something strange. He could not resist the temptation anymore. He finally, he was tempted to go and see this, to hear that sound. Lowering himself to the level of the window sill, the ledge at bottom of the window, he lowered himself there. He looked out at the white sheet of the moonlight outside. Everything was looking white absolutely because of the moonlight. It was a full moon day. There, not too far, was a dark, cloudy form clutching a bundle. He saw a cloudy form. He saw something very far, a dark, cloudy form clutching a bundle. Mahendra broke into a cold sweat and fell back on the pillow, panting. He saw it. He was scared. He was frightened. He was nervous. And he broke into cold sweat. He got so scared. And he just ran back on his bed. He fell back on the pillow and he was out of breath. He was out of breath. As he gradually recovered from the ghastly experience, that thing which was giving him horror, as he came out of it gradually, he began to reason with himself and finally concluded that it must have been some sort of auto-suggestion, some trick that his subconscious had played on him. He started wondering, subconscious is that part of the mind which one is not fully aware, but which influences one's actions and feelings. So he felt that his subconscious mind, has played some game. Subconscious, the word itself is telling you, conscious, you're fully awake. Subconscious is you're half aware. Yeah. So he said maybe this subconscious mind has played some game because he never believed in ghosts. Yeah. Now the problem was because, this one Iswaran had mentioned to him. So he was, he said now that thing was registered in my mind and so now that is only throwing an imagination. I'm sure there is nothing of that sort. By the time he had got up in the morning, had a bath and come out to have his breakfast, the horror of the previous night had faded from his memory. Morning, he got up all fresh. He freshened up, he was ready, and he came for his breakfast. And that thing was no longer in his memory. He was out of it. Iswaran greeted him at the door with his lunch packet and his bag. He gave him his lunch packet. Just as Mahendra was stepping out, Iswaran grinned and said, "Sir, remember the other day when I was telling you about the female ghost with a fetus in its arms? You were so angry with me for imagining things, weren't you? I had told you and you had shouted at me, telling me that, oh, you're stupid, get your stomach checked, get your head checked. Well, you saw her yourself last night. I came running, hearing the sound of moaning that was coming from your room." He says, you actually saw that ghost. Like, while I'm telling you, I'm literally getting goosebumps. So he says, you actually saw that ghost and I heard the moaning and I came running because that sound was coming from your room. A chill went down Mahendra's spine. Something made him feel very frightened. He was highly horrified. He did not wait for Iswaran to complete his sentence. He hurried away to his office and handed in his papers, resolving to leave the haunted place the very next day. He was so scared that he ran to his office. He gave them the paper. He said, "Look, I quit. I don't want to stay in this place any longer." Resolving, as in he decided to do that. He decided to actually quit from that job and leave the haunted place which is frequented by a ghost the very next day. So finally, Iswaran had, his way of telling stories had influenced Mahendra so much that he says, no ways, no more and no longer. Well, that brings us to the end of this beautiful story. I'm sure you have enjoyed all the anecdotes. I'm sure you have enjoyed the way Iswaran had actually put up every anecdote. So, I'll tell you a secret. Old storytellers never die. They disappear into their own story. They never, they're never gone because they are alive in their own stories. They have, written those stories, and whenever you read them, you feel, yes, they are there. These are the storytellers which actually influence you, just like our dear Iswaran. So, happy storytelling. Be a good storyteller. That will increase your vocabulary, your creativity. Go wild with your imagination. Think out of the box and write down and produce some really good stories. So, keep watching and keep learning.